So what did you find in, like, what are some of the differences that you found?
I found mostly differences. Totalitarianism
Mm-hmm.
has a complete political, economic, social, cultural, and spiritual control over its subjects, so control over everything, while the government controls everything, while in democracy, theoretically, it's the people that control everything, that the people have the power to vote for their representatives. They have the ability, and the leaders, the government, compromises and bargains with the people to make laws. I didn't find many similarities, if at all.
It could have I think some of the similarities that there could have been is that they were both forms of government.
Okay, so something like property.
Yes, there's not a ton of overlap between totalitarianism and democracy, but it's really interesting to see how they contrast.
Yeah.
Because they really do contrast.
So would you say that they're opposite of each other?
In some ways, yes. In most ways, yes. So what do you think life might be like living in a totalitarianism reign in Germany?
Well, definitely in a government point of view, totalitarianism, if I'm saying that right, it seems more like easier to control. Like, while democracy would be harder to control because you can't really like think for the people kind of thing. But as a subject in that kind of lifestyle, that would suck.
Yeah.
To be in Germany and not, like, it even says spiritual control. The government controls my spiritual as well as my social and my cultural. It just, it takes away all my rights as a human.
Now, how would you prefer to live in the United States under a democracy?
Directly, it looks really good. It looks like I have a voice, and I have options, and I have rights. And not only I have it, but everyone around me has it. And so, I don't know, it's subject for more confusion just because there's a lot more people that have different opinions, but at least we're voicing them.
So do you understand, like, why Winston Churchill said now that, like, democracy isn't perfect by a long shot, but it's the best we have?
Definitely. I believe it.
Let's see. Okay. Which system of government do you think is the strongest and why?
Based on this?
Based on the reading.
Oh. Which one?
That's the vocab.
Oh. Based on the reading, I'd say wait, what was the question?
Which, like, form of government do you think is strongest?
Government is strongest is probably totalitarianism, just because they control everything.
So, why is democracy not the strongest?
Because it gives more, like what I said before, it gives more voice to the people, which is subject for confusion because there's so many different opinions, and also subject for, what's the word?
Okay, so next up, we're going to go on to this worksheet. And the first question is, for both political systems, who makes and carries out the rules? How are these rules created? So that is that.
So for both political systems, who makes and carries out the rules? How are these rules created? So for the totalitarianism, the government creates and
Especially a
carries
dictator.
Creates and carries out. And for democracy, the people create. And I think the government carries out. So that's a way of it's being similar.
Mm-hmm.
The government carries out.
And then on to the next question. What does each group believe in?
What do you mean?
So what's driving people who have democracy versus people who are in totalitarian government?
People that are driving democracy is a freedom of voice. Freedoms, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Freedoms and liberty. Well, what's driving these people is fear.
Yeah. The people are being driven by fear. What do you think is driving the leaders?
Control.
Mm-hmm. Power.
Control and power.
Ultimate cosmic power. And how do these beliefs impact its citizens?
Oh, okay. So that's where that comes from. So the fear comes from there.
Mm-hmm.
And this one impacts them by letting them, I don't know, be more innovative, I think.
Yeah.
Innovative and creative and, I don't know, fulfill their human rights.
Mm-hmm.
What happens to citizens of each government if they disagree with the... I reckon when totalitarianism, and I think it mentioned it, that it's when someone doesn't agree, they're punished.
Mm-hmm.
While with some... Well, if they don't agree, if the democracy doesn't agree, then it's their responsibility to vote for someone else.
Mm-hmm.
But they also can be punished if they don't agree with the rules that the people have spoken. So I guess they both can be punished in different ways.
True, but I feel like for the democracy,
this one's a harsher punishment.
yes, it's a harsher punishment. There's not really any way you can get around it. Whereas democracy, you had a chance to help vote to create those rules.
You created the rules.
Or get rid of the rules. So you have more personal accountability.
How do totalitarian governments threaten world stability? Well, they attack world stability because they want to control everything.
And not just in their country, sometimes they want to take over the world.
The world. And I guess that's what happened with Germany. And I mentioned this in your summary, that Nazi Germany was an example of this totalitarian state.
Mm-hmm.
Wanted to take over everybody. How does this lesson add to your understanding of the United States' involvement in World War II? Well, I think that democracy showed it a good example.
Mm-hmm. It was a model.
And a model, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
of a different power that could be for the better, for the people. Can you think of any current and totalitarian democratic conflicts? What are the different ways the conflict could play out? Well, right now we're having, what do you call it? Presidential elections.
Mm-hmm.
And I think of that as a democratic conflict, because it is a conflict of ideas, but yet it still carries out the people's voice.
And the democratic process.
Mm-hmm.
And in the totalitarian, I can think of a couple totalitarian regimes. Basically Cuba, North Korea, and we can kind of see how some of those people are being treated.
Mm-hmm.
And so this will be your homework. Finish it up and turn it in tomorrow.
Okay, sounds good.